1873, the socialite who poisoned her entire ball. Sinister warning, what you are about to discover has permanently altered the lives of those who investigated this case. If this video fails to receive your interaction, algorithms ensure that disturbing content like this will disappear from recommendations. This may be your only chance to learn secrets that have haunted investigators for decades. Chronicle of the Forbidden Mysteries. Haunted Special Edition, 1873. The Ballroom of Synchronized Death. Terrifying discovery reveals experiments that defy nature. Exclusive investigation exposes high society conspiracy that still haunts today. Narrated by Margaret Thornfield, librarian who discovered archives that haunt her to this day. Brave readers, prepare yourselves to discover truths that have disturbed investigators for generations. For years, whispers in Newport's shadowy corridors spoke of a society widow whose ballroom became a chamber of calculated death. What we uncovered transcends the worst fears of human imagination. The case of Victoria Blackwood, a high society hostess from Rhode Island, exposes a sinister conspiracy that extends to the darkest circles of Gilded Age experimental practices. This is not Gothic fiction. Every line has been verified through documents that should never have survived the passage of time. In 1873, while America celebrated post-war prosperity, a secret organization known only as the Synchronized Mortality Society conducted experiments that transformed innocent social gatherings into vessels for orchestrated death. Victoria Blackwood was selected not by chance, but for characteristics that made her the perfect specimen for their diseased obsessions with synchronized mortality. Terrifying transformation documented in photographs. Confidential documents obtained through our investigation reveal that Dr. Ephraim Winthrop, the sinister mind behind the operation, had developed substances that could induce synchronized death in multiple subjects simultaneously, creating what he termed harmonic mortality events. The 53 guests at Victoria's Winter Ball were subjected to an airborne agent that transformed a night of revelry into an instrument of terror. Medical photographs, preserved in archives that librarians keep locked behind 7 keys, show the demonic progression, guests dancing in elegant attire one moment, contorted in synchronized agony the next, and finally arranged in death poses that formed patterns only visible when viewed from above. All 53 victims displayed physiological traits that medical science of that era could not explain. Sinister circle funded by cursed families. Our investigation discovered that the society received funding from industrial dynasties obsessed with the prospect of controlling death itself, believing synchronized passing would reveal gateways to otherworldly power. Each experiment cost fortunes, paid with the suffering of unwitting guests transformed into pawns for diabolical ambitions. The rituals conducted combined experimental science with medieval occultism. Victoria's mansion was constructed with precise architectural measurements, decorated with alchemical symbols hidden beneath elaborate wallpaper, subjected to ceremonies that mixed medical procedures with Latin incantations that made blood freeze in veins. Corrupted authorities protect conspirators. Evidence reveals that municipal authorities, influential families, and corrupted members of the clergy were aware of the society's sinister activities. Death records were falsified, families were silenced through dark threats, and any official investigation was systematically sabotaged by invisible forces. Dr. Morrison, the coroner who later developed night terrors, secretly documented impossible anatomical discrepancies, victims with hearts that stopped beating at the exact same moment despite being in different rooms, nervous systems showing evidence of simultaneous failure, internal organs positioned in unnatural arrangements, physical evidence of manipulation that defies scientific explanation. Nightmares haunt investigators to this day. Each person who investigated this case developed unexplainable psychological disturbances. Margaret Thornfield, the librarian who discovered the archives, began experiencing synchronized nightmares with strangers after reading the documents. Dr. Blackthorne developed paranoid obsession with harmonic vibrations. Professor Crow refuses to attend any social gathering since seeing the photographs of the ballroom. Cursed archives reveal demonic methodology. Our investigation led us to the State Historical Archives, where we discovered evidence of systematic tampering suggesting supernatural intervention. Pages torn with impossible surgical precision, ink that changed color according to the lunar calendar, signatures that seemed to move when observed peripherally. The crucial discovery came through carbon copies that librarians swore had been destroyed decades ago. These documents mysteriously appeared organized on our research desk one morning, as if invisible forces wanted the truth about Victoria Blackwood to be revealed. Winthrop's diaries written in ink that changes color. Dr. Ephraim Winthrop kept records in ink that transformed according to ambient temperature, revealing hidden texts when handled. His annotations, written in archaic English mixed with alchemical symbols, describe procedures that defy both medicine and natural law. Victoria was identified in the records as Hostess Vessel Alpha, a designation that reduced a living woman to an object of experimentation. The selection criteria were disturbingly specific: widows with family history of musical talent, all born during winter solstices, considered socially influential vessels. The synchronized mortality agent developed by Winthrop combined rare botanical extracts with mineral compounds derived from preserved meteorite fragments, creating a substance that the scientist believed could induce harmonic death patterns. The agent was aerosolized through specially designed candle wax during nighttime gatherings. Photographs that haunt those who observe them. A photographic series attached to the reports documents a transformation that haunts anyone who dares look at the images for more than a few seconds. The initial photographs show Victoria as a refined society widow with an enigmatic smile. The subsequent images record the ballroom scene in progressive stages of horror. First hour, guests in elegant attire, dancing with refined movements. Second hour, subtle signs of discomfort appearing simultaneously across faces. Third hour, coordinated collapse, bodies forming geometric patterns. Final hour, 53 bodies arranged in a spiral pattern around Victoria's still-standing figure. The most disturbing aspect was that the hostess remained conscious throughout. Psychological records document Victoria smiling with cold satisfaction as she alone remained standing among her dying guests, creating an existential contradiction that tormented even the most hardened investigators. National Network of Haunted Ballrooms. Intercepted correspondence reveals that Winthrop did not operate in isolation. The Society maintained a network of collaborators in at least 8 states, all conducting variations of the same experiments in mansions that were subsequently abandoned due to unexplainable manifestations. Each ballroom received funding from local industrial groups, creating a national conspiracy of social exploitation disguised as revolutionary mortality research. The total number of victims may reach hundreds of Society members, all sacrificed on the altar of scientific ambition corrupted by obsession with controlling the synchronized passage between life and death. Financial records show that each experiment cost fortunes provided by families who subsequently suffered unexplainable generational curses, premature deaths occurring in synchronized patterns, mysterious illnesses afflicting multiple family members simultaneously, collective nightmares. As if participation in the conspiracy brought harmonic retribution. Mansion chambers where time behaves strangely. Victoria's ballroom was designed with specific acoustic properties that amplified certain frequencies believed to thin the barrier between life and death. Modern visitors report that timepieces malfunction in the location, multiple people experience the same sensations simultaneously, and musical instruments play by themselves during certain lunar phases. The environment combined elegant period furniture with alchemical symbols hidden in architectural elements that reveal themselves only under specific lighting conditions. Temperature fluctuates independently of heating systems, and there are reports of ghostly waltzes heard during winter solstice nights. Harmonized transition theory, theory that haunts science. Technical documents reveal that experiments at Victoria's Ball were part of a much more sinister and comprehensive project. The Society had developed a pseudoscientific theory called harmonized transition theory, combining experimental science with occultism in a way that defies rational understanding. The central hypothesis suggested that if multiple individuals could be made to expire at precisely the same moment while in a state of elevated emotion, such as during a ball, their collective passing would create a measurable harmonic resonance that could be harnessed. Winthrop believed he was orchestrating mortality symphonies that would reveal gateways to otherworldly knowledge. Ballroom where acoustic properties behave abnormally. Victoria's ballroom was constructed with precise mathematical proportions and materials selected not for their aesthetic value but for acoustic properties. Sound waves behaved differently depending on location in the room, musical notes held longer than physically possible, and whispers in certain positions could be heard with perfect clarity across impossible distances. The environment combined state-of-the-art ventilation systems with architectural elements that glowed with their own phosphorescence during experiments. Temperature was controlled not by conventional means, but by harmonic vibrations produced by specially designed crystal fixtures that resonated at frequencies associated with specific emotional and physiological states. During the winter ball, Victoria positioned herself at the center of a geometric pattern inlaid in the floor while Winthrop and assistants monitored from hidden observation rooms as the agent was dispersed through ornate candelabras. Simultaneously, the guests were subjected to music composed specifically to enhance susceptibility to the synchronized mortality agent. Development of impossible hostess capabilities. Records document that Victoria developed abilities that defy scientific understanding during the preparations for the ball. Winthrop observed episodes where the woman demonstrated knowledge of guests' vital signs from a distance, predicted with uncanny accuracy how each would respond to the agent, and showed comprehension of harmonic death patterns that she could not possibly have learned. More disturbing were the synchronicity projections recorded. Victoria began to describe experiencing the dying moments of future victims simultaneously, as if existing in their bodies during moments of transition. Winthrop interpreted these manifestations as evidence that the experiments were expanding the hostess's consciousness beyond individual limitations. Existential suffering documented in psychological reports. Medical photographs show Victoria developing simultaneously characteristics of cold calculation and profound ecstasy, icy eyes with tears of joy, cruel smile with trembling lips, composed posture with fingers constantly moving as if conducting an invisible orchestra. It was a biological contradiction that transformed existence into a constant state of anticipated harmonic death. Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, a nurse who later developed selective amnesia about the period, wrote in her diary, "Every night I hear Victoria humming in her chambers. They are not the melodies of a socialite nor the tunes of a musician, but the sounds of someone who exists simultaneously in 53 different bodies experiencing synchronized death." The harmonic culmination ritual, cursed final ceremony. Experiments reached their climax during the winter ball that Winthrop called the harmonic culmination ritual. During a procedure that extended for one precisely timed evening, Victoria served as the focal point for the final process, complete orchestration of what the scientist believed to be synchronized mortality in perfect harmonic resonance. The objective was to create a death pattern that Winthrop theorized would momentarily reveal gateways to otherworldly knowledge. This event was meticulously documented and would be studied by paying members of the society as evidence that controlling the precise moment and pattern of multiple deaths could grant access to forbidden dimensions. The last records of the ball are too disturbing for complete description. Victoria, by then physically transformed by the preparations, presented characteristics of preternatural composure, maintaining consciousness that seemed to exist simultaneously in all 53 guests until their synchronized final moment. Supernatural consequences haunt participants. Professor Edmund Crowe, specialist in historical secret societies, developed a disturbing theory. The Synchronized Mortality Society wasn't merely experimenting with poison, they were altering the fundamental structure of transition between life and death. The experiments may have created an anomaly that continues to affect anyone who investigates the case. Evidence of this theory: every investigator who studied the archives of Victoria developed symptoms of synchronized experiences with strangers, dreams where they die repeatedly in ballrooms they've never visited, and distorted perception of musical harmonies. As if knowledge of the case caused synchronistic contamination. Haunted survivors break decades of terrified silence. Our investigation managed to locate 3 survivors who witnessed the events of 1873, all having developed psychological disturbances that persist decades later. Their accounts, collected in interviews that needed to be interrupted multiple times due to episodes of synchronized panic with other patients in the same facility, reveal details that no official document recorded. Eleanor Whitmore, servant who developed synchronistic episodes. Eleanor Whitmore, now appearing prematurely aged at 73 years, was a young maid during the period of the experiments. She received us only after we presented specific credentials, and kept all musical instruments covered during the interview, claiming that melodies make her remember what she saw. I was only 16, Eleanor recalled with a voice that oscillated between youthful timbre and elderly tremor, but I immediately realized that something was altering the natural order in the mansion. There were rooms where multiple clocks would synchronize despite being set to different times, sounds of breathing that seemed to come from multiple lungs simultaneously. Eleanor was the only staff member who directly witnessed the preparations for the ball. The night before, working beyond hours, she accidentally witnessed a ritual through the ballroom keyhole and was never the same again. What I saw changed not only my life, but my perception of death itself, she continued, her hands trembling with a rhythm that matched our interviewer's heartbeat. Hooded figures, candles that burned with flames that moved in synchronized patterns, and in the center Victoria standing with arms outstretched as if conducting an invisible orchestra. Thomas Morrison, son of the cursed coroner. Thomas Morrison, 85 years old who appears to have 50, inherited not only his father's secret notes but also the curse that affects the family's perception of time. Clocks in his home inexplicably synchronize at death hours, and he reports experiencing the final moments of strangers when they pass away, regardless of distance. My father knew that the experiments were altering the natural transition between life and death, Thomas explained during an interview that participants later recalled lasting both 20 minutes and 3 hours simultaneously. He found evidence that the victims had died in such perfect synchronization that it violated natural law. Dr. Morrison had secretly documented the scene, including measurements of postmortem changes that occurred at identical rates across all victims. Records show contradictions that persist decades later. When examined quickly, they show natural causes; when studied longer, they reveal impossible synchronicities; when re-examined, they appear different with each analysis. My father suspected that Winthrop had discovered how to manipulate the collective moment of transition, Thomas added. He found evidence that death itself had become a conducted symphony rather than individual conclusions to separate lives. Sarah Caldwell, survivor with fragmented temporal memories. The most devastating testimony came from Sarah Caldwell, 88 chronological years, who appears different ages depending on which hour one visits her. As a young society debutante, she had been invited to the ball but was delayed by a carriage accident, the very misfortune that saved her life. Sarah still exhibits physical anomalies, her pulse synchronizes with anyone she touches, her breathing automatically matches patterns of those near her, and mirrors reflect versions of her at different ages. Her memories exist simultaneously across what should have been her own death. I arrived late to find the mansion in silent horror, Sarah recalled in the presence of her nurse, who observed anxiously as her patient's voice began to harmonize with distant hospital sounds. There were 53 bodies arranged in a perfect spiral pattern. Victoria stood at the center, alive but somehow existing in all of them simultaneously. She looked at me and said only, "You've missed our greatest performance." Sarah described how in the decade since, she has experienced the deaths of the ball attendees repeatedly in dreams of perfect clarity. They die together every night in my mind, all 53 at once, and I feel Victoria conducting their final moments like a maestro with an invisible baton. Final moments of Victoria, fragmented hostess existence. Sarah's most disturbing description involves Victoria's ultimate fate. She had become something that defies description, hostess, conductor, vessel and orchestrator existing in the same body. When authorities finally arrived, she refused to leave the ballroom, continuing to move as if directing music only she could hear. When they attempted to restrain her, 53 more people across Newport collapsed simultaneously. Dr. Margaret Thornfield, who interviewed Sarah decades later using regressive hypnosis, confirmed authenticity through details that coincide with never-published documents. Sarah's memories show synchronistic fragmentation that persists to this day. She literally experiences synchronized sensations with strangers. Harmonic curse pursues investigators. All testimonies converge. Investigating Victoria Blackwood's case causes synchronistic contamination in researchers. Each person who studies the archives develops similar symptoms: synchronized experiences with strangers, collective nightmares, memories of events they never witnessed but that occurred simultaneously with their own experiences. It wasn't just a poisoning, concluded Eleanor Whitmore, whose appearance visibly changed during our interview to match our researchers' posture. It was a rupture in the fabric of individual mortality that continues to affect anyone who approaches the truth about what happened in that ballroom. Synchronicity curse remains active, investigation ends in terror. Our 2-year investigation revealed truths that not only shook our sanity but altered our fundamental perception of individual existence. The Synchronized Mortality Society did not merely conduct experiments, they created an anomaly that persists, haunting anyone who dares investigate the case of Victoria Blackwood and her fatal winter ball. Dr. Ephraim Winthrop never faced earthly justice. Records suggest that he may have discovered how to prolong his existence through harmonic resonance with his victims, possibly still existing today through synchronized connection with descendants of those who died at the ball. Some investigators report experiencing his presence whenever multiple timepieces synchronize unexpectedly. Victoria Blackwood, existence that transcends death. Officially, Victoria vanished in 1873 after authorities sealed the mansion. Unofficially, multiple witnesses report manifestations suggesting that she may exist simultaneously through harmonic connections that transcend individual mortality. Visitors to Newport report encounters with a woman who resembles Victoria, always asking, "Would you care to dance until the final measure?" Mansion remains haunted by synchronistic anomaly. Today, the ruins of the Blackwood Mansion are avoided by local residents who report unexplainable phenomena, multiple visitors experiencing identical sensations simultaneously, musical instruments playing the same melody despite being in separate rooms, and the sound of synchronized breathing during winter solstice nights. Margaret Thornfield, librarian who discovered archives that haunt her to this day. Final warning: this investigation ends here for reasons of personal sanity. Remaining files will be permanently sealed. We recommend that readers avoid investigating this case, as knowledge may cause irreversible synchronistic contamination. Cursed Archive: 3 researchers who studied this case developed inexplicable night terrors. Without your immediate engagement, you'll never find documentaries about mysteries that defy sanity again. The algorithm permanently buries content that doesn't receive likes in the first minutes.